Hello everyone and welcome to episode 6 of the Blues News podcast. I'm here with Andy Leader from Suepa, Southend United Ex-Players Association. Firstly, Andy, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, nice early start. All good.
Yeah, nice early start. Yeah, for people who don't know, it's about 8:30 a.m. So, we don't mess around. Nice early start. Let's get straight into it. So, firstly, Andy, if you could just tell us a little bit about your background, how you got involved in Southend and Suepa, that would be great.
Right, well, I suppose it shows my age a little bit, but it's around about the 1970 FA Cup final I first got interested in football. Dad bought me a Chelsea kit. It was all blue, so a little bit like Southend. Most of my mates went to see West Ham or Chelsea or someone in London, so I wanted to do the same. And Dad decided that we'll go to Southend instead, but it was all blue. And then once you go to your first match and get a feel for things, then you kind of got the bug, really. And it was just lovely, and a very different 𝗬𝗏𝗘𝗍𝗆 to what it is now, of course, with all the terrace in and very much similar looking stands, but the feel within them is very different. But good early days.
Yep. Do you have any favourite players and memories over the years?
I think if I unusually, I would always cite Dave Worthington as my first ever sort of Southend hero, and he was captain for us in the early 70s. And what resonated with me is that he, really was a trier, full in the tackle, full-blooded, and he would shake his fist at the West Stand where we were sitting to get us going, and just a real good motivator. And I've been fortunate to meet him 3 or 4 times since, and he's just such a nice guy as well. Very different to his hard man image on the pitch, as many of the players are as well. Actually, they're often sort of quite mild when you meet them in person.
Yeah. So I think we'll get into you completing the 92. So for people who don't know what that is, if you could just quickly explain what that is and what sort of you did for completing that.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I went to different grounds. I suppose the cup runs to Derby in the 70s, and then when I got a bit older, starting to go away to games, sort of mostly local ones. But then when I moved out first to Plymouth and then Bristol, started going to see Southend at more odd locations like Newport and Torquay and places like that. And then eventually you think, oh, well, I've got nothing better to do. I'll write a list of where I've been, and it tots up into a frightening total. And you think, well, we'll try and do a few more. So you make the effort. Back in the 80s, it's hitchhiking to games sometimes. Living away. I've lived away from Southend since I was 16, so it's always going as an exile from some place or other. But eventually you find that you've been to quite a few of these places. Some of them, of course, are long since gone. But it wasn't until 2015 or so, I thought, right, well, there's about 8 or 9 to go, and with my oldest son Jim, we hatched a plan to do tick off the remaining ones. And so we found ourselves going to Newport again, the new ground there, Cardiff, and ended up at Blackpool. So that was the last one, and took a group of friends up there. About 16 of us went and had a bit of a party over the weekend, and met up with a former Southend player called Derek Spence. Now, scroll back a little bit. Back in 81, I helped cheer him off the pitch as we won promotion at Torquay. Now Derek didn't remember that, naturally, but I did know that he worked at Blackpool at the time in the community trust there. So sent him a note, and to my surprise, he got in touch and agreed to meet us all at the pub, which he did, and stayed for quite a long while, had a few beers, and we got to know each other. And I told him I decided, because another ambition, I suppose, to aside from doing the 92, was to write a book. I think everybody's got a book in them of some sort.
Yes, definitely.
So I was penning that during the last few months, and Derek agreed to write a foreword for it. So ex-England, ex-Irish international who played with George Best, as he will often tell you, and just an all-round good guy. It's nice to get his input. And so the book was published back in May 2016, dedicated to my dad, who had first taken me to matches. It was rather emotional, I suppose, because it was a race against time, because Dad was in the suffering from very poor health, and actually passed away in June of that year. But I did manage to actually get to read with him the first passages of the book, which was nice.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it sort of took off a little bit. I got in touch with the club. I never really had too much to do with the club at the time, other than just keep going to matches. I was just sort of a usual fan, sort of paying my money and going in. And the club were quite open and friendly to me trying to sell the book in the club shop. And I got to meet quite a lot of people through that. And ultimately the book sold over 2,000 copies, which for a self-published book is quite a good total. I think the average per the stats is about 30. So a lot of them fall on the grey side, but quite a lot of effort and in the end I raised money through the royalties are not much, but through I raised money now for any books that still sell, and it still dribbles through. With the money goes to 𝗠𝗁𝗲𝗄𝗆𝗍𝗍's charity.
Well, you touched on the book quite a lot there, and I did actually want to ask about the book. So, obviously, I think it's really interesting because, as you said, everyone's got a book in them, and I'm sure everyone would like to write a book. So, what was the process of writing that book like? Did you really enjoy it?
Yeah, it was great actually. I did it on a sort of a ground by ground basis, and it was not a sort of a monologue of what the game was like. I mean, I can't remember what happened at Wimbledon in 1978 to save my life, apart from maybe odd bits, that I know was my first away coach trip, and things like that. So you research about what happened, about the club, think of things that happen generally in football, try and relate bits to that particular game, and use it as a sort of a tale of experiences, really. And it was I did it over 6 months, and it was such a nice thing to do. I had a friend who, for his sins, is a Leeds fan and writes a book every year on following Leeds. He was extremely useful because he helped peer review it, as did my wife, and anyone who writes a book should just read it. Because it's surprising where you can sort of fine tune it. So it was lovely, and brought back memories of some favourite grounds. I always liked the old Layer Road, mostly because of the tight atmosphere in the away end, and that whenever I went we seemed to win, so it was always quite a nice occasion. And places like Bristol Rovers' old Eastfield ground, which was a fantastic place because it was so awful. It was just fascinating. It ran 3 different sports in speedway and greyhound and football. Seemed to do none of them well, but somehow it gelled into a fascinating place.
Well, the book's called The Routes to the 92, and I believe you can buy it on Amazon. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah. I mean, it still sells a little bit. I don't worry about marketing it now, and anyone who knows me are probably bored to death of hearing of Routes to the 92. But it's still there on Amazon if anyone would like it, and all the royalties go to the Currie and Bentley Foundation.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'll leave a link to that below. So for anybody who wants to read it, I would definitely recommend it. You know, you've got some very great stories, which I'm sure we'll get onto. Well, now really. So
Yeah.
you mentioned it a bit before about how you ended at Bloomfield Road. So I believe you started at Roots Hall. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, Roots Hall was the first ground, and then you know, for quite some time when you're a youngster, that tends to be the only ground you go to. The first away game I went to was at the Brighton's old Goldstone ground, and Dad or Mum persuaded Dad that, you know, a bit of Christmas shopping somewhere would be nice. So Dad said, "Oh, right, where are Southend playing?" So we went down to Brighton. Not exactly convenient. So Mum and Claire, my sister, went to shopping whilst Dad and me went to the match, and it started off in true Southend fashion because we lost 2-0 and had 2 men sent off. So that sort of kind of
Typical Southend, yeah.
set the trend for my away games. Some of them have been a bit interesting. Yeah, and Chelsea was the first other ground I think I went to. And yeah, that was huge. And watching Chelsea versus Wolves and Leeds and teams that you reel off the names of the players now when I probably don't know two of the current team of Chelsea. So
it changes all the time now.
Yeah, so, you know, classic names and very different atmospheres at ground now. I went to Chelsea quite a bit. I then ended up going to Plymouth quite a lot, which I've still got some affiliation with because Plymouth was where I went to university. So marooned in there, you know, a few hundred miles away from Roots Hall, you need to get a football fix. So off to Home Park I went, and that was quite nice. Go with a few friends who are still in touch with today, and now I live down in Dorset. I still go to, you know, Home Park occasionally. Watching Plymouth and Southend is not an easy path for a football fan,
No.
but quite a unique one. But, you know, there's some good Southend and Plymouth links. I mean, Gary Nelson, who I know well now, he's played for both, and Dave Smith, our old manager, managed both, and there's quite a few different you know, links there.
That's really interesting. But so obviously you finished at Bloomfield Road. Was there a reason you finished at Bloomfield Road in particular, or was it just the last one to tick off?
Yeah, no, it was just convenient, really. I wanted to end on what I called a proper ground. You know, I mean, there was one of the two of the last ones were Cardiff's and Newcastle, which is a great stadium, Middlesbrough, but, you know, a lot of those have been sanitised. Bloomfield Road is still unique and was still going through some angst at the time with the Oyston family still in control of there. But, you know, there was also the link with Derek as well, which Derek Spence, which set up things quite nicely, and it was a good place for a weekender when you know, we took 4 cars full of Southend fans and other people that have been with me to matches over the years, and we all went up there and had a good time. So yeah, a good place to end at, and yeah, they made us feel welcome.
Yeah. Well, do you have any favourite grounds that you visited, or games, or memories?
Well, yeah, certainly I said Bristol Rovers and Colchester. Favourite grounds, perhaps, but aside from Roots Hall, of course. But, you know, going to watch England play at Wembley, at the old Wembley, certainly. I always find it a bit odd, really, in that you know, Dad and I went to the England-Scotland game in '77 when the Scots all ran on the pitch and ripped down the goalposts, and we were, aside from the aside from those who are probably a bit too comatose to move, we were the only two, I think, left on the terrace, and it was just a completely different environment because people could take in alcohol, and that was piled high, and it was just a weird atmosphere. And there were Scots in the roof who you know, they got up into the girders, and then of course they had too much to drink, so it was quite hairy for some of them. Some of them then needed to go to the loo, which was quite nice. So you get rained on And then but then to compare that, having since been to Wembley and experienced the corporate hospitality there, and when you get a waiter calling you sir, the same venue where you got rained on by Scots in the roof, it's just sort of a interesting contrast. But I mean, a lot of the grounds now, you go to Southampton or Derby, and it's exactly the same ground, which different coloured seats. So it is easy to look with sort of rose-tinted glasses at more interesting grounds in the past, but yeah, there's a balance. So there is. It's still exciting, I think, going to a new ground. My 92 has lapsed somewhat since I did it. I've got about 10 left to do now because of changes, but I'll look forward to kicking that up again when we get back in the league.
So what inspired you to take up complete the 92? Was it a case of you've been to so many grounds that you looked and just thought, I might as well complete it, or was there something else that inspired you to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it was that. It's just one little ambition off the bucket list, I suppose. Yeah. And my older son Jim at the time, he was moving back home from where he was working in Newcastle to come back to Suffolk where we were living, and it was a good father and son thing to get off and do again and reignite his Southend watching, which had been missing for a couple of years, because I got 3 boys, and Jim, the eldest, is the only one to actually take to watch Southend. But it was nice when they were all little, and I had all 3 with me in the family stand. So that was quite a nice situation. But Jim's the only one that's stayed the course, really. I mean, it's a bit of an acquired taste. I've taken lots of people to Southend once, and not to but a few friends will go with me from time to time. But Jim's the one who's gone, and we've had season tickets together there, and it's just a good father and son thing.
Well, yeah, I think when you say a father and son thing, that's definitely why I go to the football as much as I do. It's a nice thing to do with your dad, so I definitely understand that. And you say it's an acquired taste. It certainly is, because you do sort of just get hooked into going to new grounds. And personally, one of the things that I love most about going to new grounds, I haven't been to quite as many as you, but I've been to a fair few over the years, and I think one of the things that I really enjoy about going to new grounds is just seeing new cities and just experiencing new places that I haven't been before. So what do you think is the thing that you enjoyed most about the journey?
Yeah, I mean, being in different situations and, meeting friends. I mean, last year, we went to Dorking. I think it was last year. Get lost as to how long we've been in the National League now. But Dorking was fabulous. I mean, considering you got somewhere like Aldershot just down the road, which is a complete contrast of a place, Dorking was lovely. Had some nice pubs. The Dorking chairman put some money behind the bar for us all to have a drink, which was a lovely gesture. And to be in a table of there was about 12 of us there, it was just a good social occasion. But when you go to away games, sometimes the situations are different. Sometimes you can't persuade anyone else to go up to Burnley or wherever, so off you go on your own, or Mansfield. And you never quite know what's going to happen. I once saw us away at Maidstone in the league, and I thought I would actually, it's now in Maidstone's league days, and I parked close and went to have a look in the ground and found myself in the ground, and without actually being asked to pay for anything, so you never quite know what's going to happen. No. I went to Mansfield back in the 80s, and there was only about 30 to 40 of us there. I'd driven up from Bristol where I was living at the time. The Mansfield fans stole the Southend flag and then ran away with it, and there was a lot of angst around that. And 20 minutes into the match, the 40 or so Southend fans had reduced to 20 because 20 of them had got arrested, and it was just a sort of a weird situation. you know, things are much more controlled now, but sometimes going to matches in the 80s was quite an experience, I would say.
Well, that was a great story, and I do love hearing some cool stories like that. Do you have any more stories? Well, maybe following Southend over the years, or just in general on your journey?
Read the book. No, it's difficult to recall them now. I suppose should have prepared a bit more. Yeah, I certainly, you know, as I said, in the 80s, some of the occasions were a bit hairy. When I went to Millwall's old den, I did ask my dad if he fancied going along, and he said, no, thank you very much, I don't want to go there. So I went on my own, and I got to the local underground station, got there, and just went into the nearest turnstile and found myself in the Millwall end. And so I thought, well, this is not too good. And I do remember saying to the copper, I said, I don't really want to be here. He said, nor do I.
Oh, God.
And I said, I need to be a bit low key. Can I go into the Southend area? So he marched me out in front of the Millwall fans around the perimeter of the pitch. So I was hardly low key before I then joined the rest of the ground. That was a bit strange, but I escaped the day there. And then when I went to the new den, I went with a mate, and we had real trouble parking. One, because some of the places looked a bit difficult or dodgy to park, and two, there was just a lack of parking. And eventually I found a place, and spent the whole game, I think, worrying about, you know, whether the car was going to be there afterwards. And it was. But I discovered why this space was there. It's because it was underneath a bridge, and every pigeon from London seemed to be roosting on it, and the car was no longer black, but it was all virtually white. So it's little things like that are just sort of stuck in the memory, really, I suppose. I won't go to. I'm not too superstitious, but I don't think I'll go to Swindon again. I've been there twice. Once I went and I was coming back on the M4, and this car did a virtual cartwheel in front of me. It slipped on the ice and just missed me, and the people in front of me were really shook up, and the whole M4 was blocked, stopped, and so, you know, it was just bad luck, I suppose, but good luck for me in that I escaped any injury. And then I went a couple of years later to see Plymouth play, and a Plymouth fan got stabbed to death at the ground. And so I'm not going a third time, because I just sort of think, you know, a bit superstitious. It's silly, I know, but
definitely.
Like I could probably think of one story for each ground, but that's probably enough for now.
Yeah, maybe don't go back to another Swindon game. That sounds a bit of bad luck. So I would like to talk. So we spoke about routes to 92, your book, and obviously you completed the 92, and that was really interesting. So I think we'll move on to your role in Suepa. So if you could just tell us, well, firstly, what is Suepa for people who don't know? I'm sure most people do, but you know, some people might not. And sort of tell us a bit about the work that you do with them. That'd be great.
Yeah. So Suepa is the Southend United Ex-Players Association. It's part of the independent supporters group, the Shrimpers Trust, of which I'm a board member. And, you know, its aim is I suppose, manifold now. It's to reconnect former players with each other, the club and the fans. It's to help players in need where we can, which we've done, which I suppose we'll come on to. And it's generally to, you know, create a good few new memories. I mean, there's nothing like, I feel sometimes a little bit like Cilla Black or Esther Ranson in terms of what they used to do on the TV and reuniting players. You get two guys who were teammates through and through, in thick as thieves, and then they haven't seen each other for 40 years, and you reunite them. That's quite powerful.
Yeah.
And done that countless times, and it's been really interesting. But it was going back to Derek Spence, it was Derek through the book that I suppose was the trigger for it, in that he said, I haven't been back to 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗏 for ages. So the following season, I got him back. He invited his old strike partner, Keith Mercer, to join them. I mean, they were a great duo back in the very early 80s, and when we won promotion in 80-81. And they had a fabulous time. They went on the pitch. Keith's eyes were streaming with, just emotion of it all, really. There was a good crowd at 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗏 that day, nearly 10,000. And they had a lovely time. And we got speaking about other players, and one of them was Alan Moody. And Alan, it was known through a post on the fan zone Shrimper Zone, which Alan's daughter had put, that Alan had suffered life-changing injuries, or sort of he had to have both of his legs amputated. He had through deep vein thrombosis, and there was obviously some lots of messages of sympathy, and one or two fans had written to the club, which was in a very different state to what it is now, and nothing had been done. And it seemed wrong that for the person that had played for Southend over 500 times, who is the club's record appearances holder, that nothing had actually been done to touch base with Alan on this and maybe see if there's anything that could be done. So I wrote to Mr. Martin at length on it, and for once he actually did listen, and gave the letter to Danny Macklin, who was running things behind the scenes a bit at the time. And then Danny put me in touch with the Shrimpers Trust, and between Paul Fitzgerald, who's the chair of the trust, Danny and myself, we hatched a plan to help Alan. Got in touch with Alan's daughter and Alan himself, and yes, they would be happy if we did something. So we ran a campaign, and we had a collection. And usually, as I'm told, if say St John's Ambulance or some little charity or whatever has a match day collection, they might raise £500-700. We had this collection, and one of the guys, Paul Yeomanson, who was counting the money that evening, rang me up and said, Andy, I've got over £3,000. Wow. And we did a bit more than that. We did some auctions of items. One guy got together a cricket team, and we had a fabulous afternoon at a cricket match. We're doing some fundraising. We got some money from someone up at one of Alan's former clubs, and did a bit of social media work as well, not too much back then. And we raised over 11.5 grand. That was enough to buy Alan a new car to meet his new disability needs, so he could drive with just hand controls to get out and about a bit. He came down with his daughter Claire to receive the initial cheque, and we had him in a box with lots of his old teammates and old friends who he hadn't seen in a long while. He wouldn't go on the pitch, though. He didn't want to go on the pitch. He was to receive some applause, and at the end of the day said, Andy, I kind of wish I had. But it was a fabulous day. And we had Sid Broomfield, the old groundsman, was still alive back then, popped in to see us, and it was just fantastic. We had Paul Clark in the box with us, and Paul, it was just fascinating to be in there with that voice that is synonymous with BBC Essex commentary. It was just like having your own commentator, and it was a lovely day. So we thought with Paul and Fitzgerald and myself, we thought, we should probably do more than that, more of this kind of thing. So pretty soon afterwards, we launched the Ex-Players Association with the idea that we might get, couple of hundred members or so. And started that up in January 2018.
Wow.
So yeah, it's moved on a bit from there.
That's amazing. Were there any players on a personal note that you're really excited about joining Suepa? Super, sorry.
Yeah, not Suepa.
For everyone listening, it's super.
Yeah. I mean, I can honestly say, and it doesn't sound corny, but every single person that joins, any player that has put on the Southend shirt and played for the club with pride has done more than what I have done and what all us fans have done. So anyone in that unique situation, it's great to have on board. Yes, there's the name players, and we're still missing one or two. Ronnie Whelan, if you want to listen and get in touch, we keep trying you, mate, but you haven't replied yet. But there's lots of lovely players that you meet, and some unexpected ones as well. I mean, people like Alan Foggan, who only played for us back in the mid-70s for half a season. Probably wasn't his most successful period. He's coming to the end of his career anyway. He'd won the Fairs Cup with Newcastle United and done some great stuff there. But Alan's been lovely. He comes down once a year to Bournemouth, not far from where I live, and to see Newcastle play. Stays with his family he's got down there. And I meet them all now each year, and we go and have a few drinks in the pub, which is lovely. So lots of things like that. I find that Steve Dyer, who played for us in the 70s, runs a pub 30 minutes away from where I live. So there's lots of, but there's certainly the bigger names. Some are quite interesting to try and get hold of. Trying to get Bilal Moshni on board was interesting, but ultimately you seek help from people that know all of these other players. Perhaps, I mean, Chris Phillips at the Echo has been great in helping us, and we've got what I call a few good super agents who make efforts to try and help me trace people. Some are easy because they're on Instagram, and you say, would you like to be part of this? It's free. You don't have to do anything. We'll send you a newsletter, and fine. And they join. Others take a little bit harder work because they don't really know who you are and think you might be some sort of spam sort of organisation. So they're not. They tend to feel shy, and you have to find other ways of trying to contact them. But the football world, although it's very spread out now overseas, and we've got quite a few, one or two French internationals from the past, and trying to contact them has been tricky. But by and large, if you know somebody, then they might know somebody else, and so on it goes. I've got a couple of guys who are extremely good at using ancestry.com.
Oh wow!
So that is quite a torturous way of trying to find out details. But if you know a player's full name, date of birth, and where they were born, then you can use that to find out where they live, or at least finding some players is a little bit more tricky than others. Recently, we thought, well, there's one guy who we're not sure whether he was still alive or not. A guy called Jimmy Thompson, but there was no sign that he had passed away through records. But you try finding a Jimmy Thompson in Scotland, there's hundreds of them, and we tried a couple of times, and I got the wrong Jimmy. One or two. One was quite nice about it. One told me where to go when I rang them up. But eventually we found Jimmy, which was lovely, and had a nice chat with him. He's living up in Scotland and is our oldest. Well, we thought at the time he was our oldest player. He's 93 years old, in good health, lives at home with one of his sons, and you know, he scored some good goals for us back in the 50s, late 50s. But then when we posted it up on social media, we you know, said we think this is the oldest player, and someone replied who, for, you know, this, you find some interesting people out there. This guy was researching the oldest players in the UK still alive.
Wow.
And he got Jimmy on his list, and it's quite good. But he said, have you tried these couple of names, both who were older? Well, one we did find had passed away, sadly. But through Ancestry.com and the help of this guy's neighbour, we found Eric Marsden, who played for us back in 1952. Eric's 94, and a few things fell into place that we got the right guy. I saw a post on social media that he had been spotted in Tesco's in Coventry doing his shopping 3 years ago, and that tied in with some ancestry records that he was actually living in that area. So we made contact. He was then actually had a hip operation, so he was actually in hospital. So 94 years old and had a hip operation, and he was convalescing in a home. But his neighbour got in touch, got the letter, and we spoke to Eric, and that was lovely. We've now 100% got Eric's the oldest player. We've researched every single one who could possibly. We've gone through sounds very tedious, but sometimes we go to these lengths. We've looked at there's a list of the oldest living people in the UK, 107 and above. There's no shrimpers on that. And we've then looked and proved whether or not they're still alive or not for everybody below 107 as well. So we're pretty sure we've got Eric, who is was the 20th oldest living player in the UK at the moment. So and from there you do a bit of network. I mean, this is why I spend far too much time on running Suepa. I thought, well, that'd be quite interesting for the other clubs that Eric played for. So I got in touch with Shrewsbury, and they were quite interested. And you know, and it's all nice things for Eric. I mean, he's sitting there in his home, you know, feeling sorry for himself, perhaps wanting to get back home to be with his wife. And he gets all of a sudden some contact from us, which is quite interesting. Shrewsbury made contact with him. It's all nice, sort of good feel good stuff, really.
Well, one player that I was quite interested to see had joined. He played not too many games last season, probably less than 10, about 10. I'm not sure if you know, but Dion Woodman. Was there any reason that I believe he's joined. Was there any reason that he joined?
No,
just to stay connected with the club.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when someone leaves, someone said I lie in wait out on the A127 roundabout to try and intercept them as they go out, but that's not quite true. But you know, Dion, we got in touch with him on social media, and you know, some of the younger players will respond on that. But Dion was great because he, I think when he played the game at Roots Hall, he was you know, thumping the chest and fist pumping when we won the game that he had played in, and was really you know, up for it. And I met him at the sponsors evening as well. Lovely guy. So yeah, a brief contact with him, and you know, we've got players that have only played you know, one game for us or part of a game. We've got some reserve players as well. So Dion, although he didn't play too many games for us, he's by no means the player that's played the least. I think that the one I would probably give the record for that to is look up the name Tony Currie. Tony was a fantastic England international back in the 70s. You know, a player that scored some fabulous goals for Leeds and Sheffield United. And then all of a sudden, Bobby Moore, was their manager at the time, signs him for Southend. And yet, he was coming a bit towards the end of his career. But he turns out, he comes onto the pitch in the warm-up and injures himself in the warm-up. So he doesn't play, and he's never played a game for Southend, but he did play 2 reserve games. So on that basis, he qualifies to be a member of the Ex-Players Association. Now, Tony, of course, is the uncle to Darren Currie. So we've got some connections with the club, and it was quite nice. So I got a call out of the blue from Tony the other day saying he would like to come to an event that we've got coming up in November, when we've got an evening with 𝗏𝗏, which should be quite interesting. So, Tony's coming along to that. He'll meet some family, and Tony, I think probably, is one of our more interesting members in terms of appearances or lack of for Southend.
It's really interesting. Well, I read online that I don't know if this is true, but I'm sure you could. I'm not sure if it's official, but I read it somewhere. Is it true that Suepa, is the largest ex-players association in England? And if so, why do you think that is?
Right. Well, we go one further than that. We'll claim the world.
Wow.
So, the Southend has not just got the longest pier in the world; it's got the largest former players group.
Wow.
And we've claimed it. When we got to 450 odd members, I was pretty sure that we were the largest in the UK, because what I do, I network with a lot of the people that I know who run other former player groups, because sometimes they're quite useful source for members. If I wanted to get in touch with Roger Willis, and I knew he was a member of the Chesterfield former players group, so I got in contact with them and they helped us out. And you get to know how big they are. And I was pretty Plymouth, as far as I'm concerned, has got the next largest group, and I know that's got 360 odd members. And Man United, as far as I can tell, has got 300, and we've got players. Groups like Wimbledon is expanding at the moment. They're doing really well. They're just above 300 now, but there's no one who's got anything close to what we've got, as far as I can tell, in the UK. So when we got to 450-ish, and we're now just above 500, I put out the claim on the internet, copied in a few clubs like Santos, Real Madrid, and Manchester United. Not that they'd ever respond, but and some of them probably haven't even got former player clubs. Lots haven't. No one responded, so the record's ours as far as I'm concerned, until someone says otherwise.
Yep, definitely. Well, I don't think anybody's going to be taking that away from you anytime soon. So, what do you think has been the most rewarding part of Suepa for you personally?
I think getting on a personal level, getting to know so many different people. I mean, I think for most Southend fans, it's going along, and it's not just the match day experience. It's watching the game. It's meeting friends and whatever. And now, having not lived in the Southend area since 16, I perhaps didn't have too many people I knew who watched Southend anymore, but I do now. And I can go in there and know people from the club as well as many fans, in particular through the book. And so it's just nice to be a part of it. Being part of the Shrimpers Trust is great as well, because there's a lovely bunch of people there who, like me, give their time freely, to run the trust, to help support the club and various charitable causes. And there's a great group of people there. So it's just a nice feel, really. And I've forgotten the original question because I've waffled on a bit.
The most rewarding part of Suepa, but you touched it.
Yeah. So I think it's meeting so many different people, and the reuniting of people. I mean, when Peter Daly, who scored did one thing for Southend, which was score a fantastic goal at Colchester back in the late 80s to virtually relegate Colchester out of the league. Bringing him along and taking him into the director's box and knocking on the commentary box door to see Paul Clark, who he hadn't seen in 40 years, and them reuniting, and they were just sort of great muckers, and that was lovely. Lots of little examples like that. I mentioned Alan Moody before. Back in 2019, we had our biggest reunion to date at Roots Hall. when we had 20 players from the Dave Smith managerial era reunite, and we've got them. And the only place we could get Alan onto the pitch because of the quirkiness of Roots Hall was actually at the northeast corner because of the slope of the ground in getting his chair up. So with the help of Frankie Banks, who's fantastic and a great supporter of what all we do at Suepa, we got the 20 slowly sort of emerged onto the ground from that corner. And the idea was that the PA announcer would when they got to the centre circle, would announce them, which he ultimately did. But in seeing everyone come onto the pitch, the whole crowd stood up as one to give them a round of applause. It was great. And Alan got to go on the pitch, which he regretted not doing a year or so earlier as well. So that was nice, and he got some applause that he duly recognised. So full of lots of little memories like that, really.
That's amazing. And one of the reasons that I really was excited about this podcast is sort of showing the great work that you do, and sort of telling people all about it, because it was the same with the 𝗓𝗚𝗓𝗓𝗓 podcast. A lot of, what you do is more public than what Reece does, but with Reece, a lot of his work wasn't known to a lot of people. So this is why I've been really enjoying this. So lastly, I'd like to talk about a cause that is really close to everyone at Southend's heart. So it's for the Match for Mickey. So if for people who are watching who don't know, could you tell us, all about what is Match for Mickey, what is the purpose, and so when it is?
Yeah. So back in late April, May time, Mickey, I got to know because we'd had him as guest a couple of times. We'd run an evening event, and he was part of that, and he thoroughly enjoyed when he was a match day guest, meeting old players, as they all do. They all go and meet Doc Sinner as well, who sits in the director's box, age 90, and he used to chase them with the cortisone injection needle to keep them going on the pitch. All things like that. Mickey loved all that. He was a lovely guy. Taxi driver still with his wife as well, Tracy, up in Harlow. And then Tracy gives us a call back in, as I said, early May, saying Mickey's in hospital and it's in a life or death situation. Family members know, but just don't know who else to tell. And Mickey had a blood clot on the leg, which was causing severe problems. And having seen some of the pictures, you wouldn't want to eat your dinner after that. It was pretty horrible. And also the stay that it was in and out of ICU. It got complicated because he also needed a bowel operation. He was in hospital ultimately for 3 months. During that period, so when she initially rang, I thought, well, let's get some messages together, because that's kind of one of the things that Suepa is all about. We have helped players renovate their back gardens or help raise money for particular causes with 𝗟𝗂𝗄𝗆 more recently. But sometimes you can help emotionally as well. And what Mickey probably needed was a little bit of interest from all that time staying in hospital. When we initially sent him some messages, he wasn't even able to read them properly. He was in such a state. But I put some notes out on 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is always wonderful for getting messages across, and on the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏s Trust and Suepa social media pages. Collected quite a lot of, well over 100 messages for Mickey, some from former teammates as well. Put them all in a document, sent them off, and he loved that. Gave us a call when he was able to. I then got a few of his. I sort of surprised him, really, I suppose, by teammates I knew were close to him. Gave them Mickey's number, and they rang him up in hospital, and that all helped to pass the day. Then one of the players we're in touch with, Stevie Phillips, called me, which was shocked about Mickey's situation, and wondered whether there anything could do, because Mickey won't be able to work again. He won't be able to he's now out of hospital, slowly learning to walk again. He won't be able to drive the cab. And, you know, unlike more modern footballers, perhaps, or certainly at a higher level footballers, he's not a wealthy guy, and he's going to miss not having that income from being a cabbie. So Steve, I got talking to Steve, and he said, well, let's what about, you know, doing a collection or maybe a match or whatever. So last year we did a match for James Walker, and in the build up to thinking about that one, I got talking to Riley Doe at the club. Riley said, you know, I've organised. He organised John White's testimony. He said, never do a match, and it's so much grief to do. Well, it was, but we learnt a lot from doing the match for James, and so we've got a checklist in place, and we kind of knew a bit what we're doing. So in involving 2 or 3 other people on the Shrimpers Trust board, Kay, Michelle, who runs the Blue Boar, Claire Campbell, who works at the Railway pub. We got together a little committee and sorting out a match, and they, you know, it's quite a lot to do, but it's good fun, and the idea will be to, you know, raise funds. We're getting a bit of sponsorship, so we've got some costs. The match is going to be held again as it was last year for James. We're going to hold it again at 𝗟𝗲𝗏 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Yep. They're a wonderful little club, so friendly, so welcoming, and they'll, you know, give us the ground use for free, but they'll make some money off of the bar and you know, eating concessions. And yeah, there's other expenses. We've got to do boring stuff like insurance. We'll get a kit. We're going to kit out the Legends team that we're going to have coming out in the replica of the 80-81 championship winning side.
Oh wow!
And so that will look quite special. We'll get another extra top for Mickey as well. Mickey won't be able to play, but we're getting along lots of players. So far, we're looking to get a squad of 20-ish together. So far, I think we've got about 14 or 15 of them, and a really interesting bunch. What's nice is that Gary Nelson, who played with Mickey back in those 80s days, is going to be playing. Gary still keeps very fit, plays a lot of veterans football at England level as well. And Barry Silkman, who played in the mid-80s, he wants to play. Slightly worried about Barry because he did have a heart attack a couple of years ago, but we're trying to sort out some paramedics. And then we've got players a lot, you know, from all different eras, you know, players from the 90s. So we've got Gary from the 70s, Barry from the 80s, we've got Phil Gridley and Gary Jones from the 90s. And then, you know, moving into your Adam Barrett's, we've got all 3 amigos. So Kevin Mayer, Darren Currie, Mark Bentley coming along, and lots of others as well. So it's going to be really good. We've also, through social media and networking on LinkedIn, Paul Miller, who used to play for Tottenham, was a former teammate of Mickey when Mickey started his career at Spurs. And Paul's a good guy, got in touch, and Paul is going to come along to the game. And with Paul's help, we've got potentially another 7 ex-Spurs players, all who played with Mickey at one point. And that includes people like Tony Galvin and Glenn Hoddle. And, you know, subject to other commitments, they'll be coming along. Peter Taylor, who of course is ex-Southend, but is ex-Spurs as well at the time Mickey was there. And Martin Robinson, who's played for both clubs, they're part of that group coming along. And what I kind of hope is going to be a nicety, assuming that both Peter Taylor and Glenn are able to come along, and I think that's pretty certain, that we're going to get those 2 former England managers to give Carl Lansley's team a team talk before kick off. So that will be quite nice for them. And so the Southend Legends team are playing Carly Lansley's Foundations team, and there'll be a few. I think it'll be an interesting challenge for Carl's team.
Yeah. facing Kevin Mayer and people like that. But I was at the previous game that you mentioned, the last one for Walker, and it was a really nice day. And if I remember correctly, I think Kevin Mayer scored one of the best goals I've ever seen that day, which is really interesting. But yeah,
he did, yeah, and he scored a bit of a screamer, and there was Lee Bernard scored a hat trick, and Lee is turning up again to this one.
Nice.
So with I think we've got also in the audience we're going to have audience in the crowd we're going to have lots of Mickey's old teammates as well who won't be playing. I mean, lots of Mickey's teammates are in their 70s now, but they'll be coming along to support Mickey. So it should be the largest ever gathering of former Southend players that we've ever had, and might have ever been the case. And you add into that to the mix a good few ex-Spurs players. You must have at least 30, I would have thought, ex-footballers around that day, if not more. So it's going to be a great event for people to come along. We'll try and involve all of those players as well. We're going to run a 𝗕𝗢𝗞𝗄𝗏 competition. I did speak to one of the ex-Spurs players who I think should remain nameless, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll take part in that." He says, "You'll need the competition to go on for 3 days though if I take part." Because his prowess at consecutive 𝗕𝗢𝗄𝗏s. So we're limiting them to 30 seconds as to how many they can do.
Yep.
So it's like just that little kind of thing, to make it. We'll be raising money through a raffle. The ticket entry is really cheap, so it's £5 for adults, £2 for under 18s, and all can be purchased online at the Shrimpers Trust website. Very easy to use, or you can buy the tickets at the Shrimpers Trust bar in before match days, or in the Railway, or in the Blue Ball pubs. Or I'm hoping to go around one of the matches beforehand with a team of other people and see if I can sell a few tickets that way. So all the money that we raise will go to Mickey. We've pretty much covered through our kind sponsorship from various people the costs. Just got 1 or 2 things to nail down there, but it should be a good afternoon. All we need is some decent weather, really.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Andy. I think that's a great cause. I'll leave a link below to your book, and also obviously the Match for Mickey and where you can buy tickets. So that'll be in the description just down below. One last thing, for people who don't know watching, when is the Match for Mickey? Yeah.
So key point. It's on Sunday, the 20th of October, at the 𝗟𝗲𝗄𝗏 ground. Nice and easy to get to. Got lots of parking around there as well.
Yep.
And the kickoff is at 3:30 p.m, but gate entry from 2:30. And do try and get there for 2:30 because, as I said, we'll be having a few bits and pieces. Lots of former players around to have selfies with, etc. Competitions going on. So it should just be a fun day.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy, and I've really enjoyed speaking to you. It's been really interesting. So I'll leave all those links down below for anybody who wants to go and find them. I'll be at the Match for Mickey, so I'll be coming from Kent. So I'll try not to mention this too much, but I do live in Kent, so I'll be coming up from Kent. So I'll be at the Match for Mickey. So hope to see everyone there. And I've really enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you very much for coming on, Andy. And it's been really, I've really enjoyed it. So is there anything else you want to say before I end?
I think that'll do for now. No, thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy. And so if anybody did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you all on the next.